I suppose one of the things to say is that I actually went to look in the literature about this when I was asked to do this piece, thinking that there would be a wealth of literature around it because it's common sense. We all know that friendship is something that's important, that makes us feel better. And I thought there would be an awful lot of stuff in the literature about that, and actually there's very little. But one of the things that it does show that is friendship is protective around things like depression, anxiety, and that people who have a good network of friends and family, again, have better measures of well-being and are better capable of dealing with life trauma as it comes along. There are also studies, not in learning disability, but in other populations, that a good network with friends means that you live longer.
When you talk to our members and ask them what's important in their lives, nearly everybody will say family and friends, and talk about how important people are to them rather than things or even activities. They always start with the people in their lives. And it is often more difficult for people with learning disabilities to make friends, and sometimes they need support to do that.
Friendship is perhaps what you and I take for granted, but it's not always easy to get and maintain, and people can be very lonely. The difficulty is often how to support people to maintain the friends that they've met and get on well with.
Friendships are really, really important in people's lives, and it's very important for organisations to recognise the value of friendships. We have friendships, you have friendships. In fact, there's been lots of studies recently that show us that friendships have replaced family life. And if you're a person with a learning disability, you often have a very different circle of family around you. So you don't have, for many people I work with, they don't have a lot of family around them because often they're getting older, families, members have moved away, or they're living in institutional type care or residential care, and increasingly people are living in independent supported living, which of course is a lot better situation. But it doesn't mean to say that the person they're sharing a house with is necessarily the person they want to be a friend of or a friend with. After all, if we live with our family or our family members every day, many of us will have friends and relationships outside that family. So I think for organisations it's very important to reflect and think, well, just because a person's living in our house, does that person just want to spend the time with the people they're sharing their house with or their residential setting? And what can we do as workers, or what can we do as an organisation to consider, well, where are people's friends, circles of friends?
Michael didn't really know anyone. When I worked for Michael, he never had any friends. Right. So I thought it would be important for Michael to have friends.
Yes.
Instead of just his support workers.
There was a study done in 2004 by Eric Emerson, which showed that people with learning disabilities and supported accommodation, there was very little friendship activities going on. If you have a learning disability, you're more likely to form friends with other people who have learning disabilities. And where these friendship activities were going on, they were going on in the public domain, so not at home. You know, and normally what do you do with your friends? You invite them home for a cup of tea. And again, the thing that was most predictive about people forming friendships was about the supportive environment that they were in. So if you're in an environment where actually they support you to go out and make friends, then it's more likely to happen. And that's been backed up by other research with people with severe learning disabilities. And it's not the level of learning disability or the social skills that they have, it's about the supportive environment. Supportive environment, you'll make friends.
When I first started with Michael, he was very quiet. He didn't really go out a lot, and now he's going out a lot. He's meeting people, he's meeting different people from different other places. Yes. Like he goes to the library on a Wednesday and he meets people from there. He goes to Linkskill on a Monday. He meets people from there. He just meets people like from all different kinds of community.
We do have a responsibility, all of us, whatever our job is or whatever our agency's direction, to think about, well, what can we do to help this person keep in touch and have relationships with other people outside our formal care sector.
Support workers should make it priority for clients to meet up with their friends and to go out and go places, even to go on holidays with them, and stay good friends. But I don't think not enough is getting done about that in people's lives. I mean, they'd rather just take their clients out or like shopping and stuff like that.
And it's easy to talk about supporting people to make friendships, but if that's not part of the thing you do now, how do you begin to do this? I think some of the lessons we've learned is it's like the sound of music. Let's start at the very beginning. And it's when you're first introduced to somebody, you can ask them things like, where did you go to school? Where have you lived? Have you lived in any different settings and institutions? Do you know people who live on your doorstep or around you that you'd like to keep in touch with?
I started working with Michael, but I used to work with Shelley beforehand. And when I went to work with Michael, we actually got Michael and Shelley together, but we didn't know they had known each other before I started with Michael. So we got in contact with Shelley and Shelley's staff, and they met up, didn't you?
We did.
Can you remember the first time you met up with her?
Last year.
Last year.
Yes.
To go out for meals. Shelley would come to Michael's. Michael would come here. They would go like for days out.
Another thing you can do is help people form their address book. That's really, really important because people might know a name of a person or a vague idea where they live or a telephone number, but because of literacy skills, perhaps aren't able, just to keep an address book. It's a basic thing we try and offer to help somebody write up their address book.
When we meet each person that asks us to work for them, we do what we call their life plan. And part of that is finding out the important people in their lives. And that includes friends in past or present or and what they would like out of friendships. And they might need a bit of support, recontacting or staying in touch. So befriending isn't the end of it. It's the continuation of that.
Keeping friends, it's hard though because some of my friends, say like my mate Gemma, she's not really allowed to go out by herself. She's got to have one-to-one with her all the time. So she finds it difficult in that way. It's like the support after. It's just a bit difficult, I suppose.
Well, I think part of my job is, say, if I'm doing a support plan with somebody, then I might kind of look at some of the barriers that they face to making friends, and identify things like, for example, if they're a bit nervous about travelling about or getting to places, then thinking about kind of how we can support them to do that. Or, if they're finding it difficult to access things in the community, then I can help people kind of identify groups and things in their local communities that they can go along to, thinking about what interests they have, and seeing if I can kind of make a link to something that might be available to them. For example, like somebody in one of the networks that we support likes knitting, so we found a knitting group that she can go along to, and she meets people there and kind of shares that activity. So I think that really helps if there's a kind of common ground for people to work from when they're making friends.
I'm Alan. This is John.
This is Paddy.
Michael.
Keyring is for people that get help for their own flat. Right. To have their own flat and to get support in that.
So at Keyring, what we do is we create it's almost like we create experiences that people can get involved in.
Well, we met, I think we met before the Warwick trip.
So they then have the experience of getting to know other people from different networks.
But then I got to know Paddy a bit more better through the Warwick trip, because we were there for a few days.
Which, you know, creates friendships because people get to spend time together, which they might not ordinarily have the opportunity to do if they were just sort of receiving their support from a provider and not necessarily getting to know the other people who also get that support.
The Warwick trip is about a bunch of people who got together from different caring networks to do different things at the Warwick on different courses and to get to know each other better. So when we all meet up in the future, we know each other a lot better than what we did before the Warwick trip.
Right, at Gateway into the community, we're always very careful to explain the difference between a member of staff and a friend, and explain the difference. For instance, we have a rule that we don't accept people as Facebook friends. We don't consider that appropriate. We try and encourage them to have each other as Facebook friends and to share jokes and information with each other to build a relationship. Sometimes if we ask members who are their friends, they'll name paid staff. And when I say to them, what would happen if they got another job? They don't know, because nobody's ever talked that through with them. And I think that is actually unfair and a bit cruel, because people do get other jobs and then disappear, and the person's left wondering, well, where has my friend gone? And I always explain, a friend is somebody that if you invite them to your house, they invite them back to your house, their house. And I ask them if this is what their support staff does. And they usually say no. And so I ask them if they feel that's an equal relationship. Are they both getting the same thing out of the friendship? And help them understand that the people that are paid to work with them are workers. The people that they socialise with don't need paying. They're there because they like them and they want to spend the time with them.
Well, John's not getting paid to be friends, and I'm not getting paid to be friends with him.
Having a relationship with somebody that's a friend is a very different relationship to somebody that looks after you or somebody that directs what you do during the day. A friendship is much more of an equal relationship, and is therefore gives somebody with a learning disability a better status and a more ordinary status and position in the community. That's it, that we would expect ourselves, and why shouldn't people with a learning disability expect to have it too?
I suppose one of the things in the caring profession is that often either service user, patients often view you as their friend. One of the things I find important is to clarify that my job is there to be their doctor, or for the staff to be their carer. And it's very different from being a friend, very qualitatively different. One of the things is that there's always a power imbalance when you're a carer or a professional involved in somebody's care. When you're somebody's friend, it's on an equal footing. And that's sort of a very different quality and very important. And actually, friends can be more helpful sometimes than doctors or nurses or carers in helping you do the right thing or deal with some problems that you have.
A big part of what we do at Keyring is to encourage people to support one another, mutually, rather than relying on paid support and staff. So, for example, we might encourage somebody in the Newcastle network wanted to have a kind of cinema group, and at first everybody's very keen to have a member of staff there, and part of our role is to kind of maybe turn up for the first one or the second one, but then to really encourage people to hold that group without us and make it their own, and you know, and from then, you know, people can create real friendships and things that are about them, and it's not about us, kind of facilitating that and encouraging them. It's kind of, it belongs to them.
So one of the activities we did was photography as an example, and that's led to a small group of people with learning disabilities themselves independently meet together. They have a key to this building and they just open the building and they arrange to meet, and they telephone each other and say, well, let's meet up next Tuesday or the following Tuesday. They've gone out and organised themselves little projects to film on wildlife or tide coming in and going out, I think was the last one, and they do all that themselves, and through that they've made more friends, and they put leaflets out in the community round the door, so it's not just people with a learning disability that join that activity group and become friends. You know, there's people who haven't got a learning disability who now come and join that group as well and are learning how to use camera from someone with a learning disability. Because I think it's everybody's responsibility, if you're working with supporting somebody with a learning disability, or the systems and services that support people with a learning disability at the end of the line, then even if you don't see it as your own personal job to enable and empower people to have friendships, I do think it's everybody's responsibility to think about, well, this is what I do with a person. I wonder if they're getting the opportunity to have friends and relationships outside the system, and to know, if you can't support that process yourself, to know where the services are that can do that, or help you signpost and direct people to have friends and relationships. And it might be a little community drop-in like here at Margaret Road, or it might be a very local organisation like the Learning Disabilities Federation, which works in a small way, or very specifically, or very good organisations like Friends Action North East, where the whole organisation and purpose is about supporting people across the North East have friends and relationships and keep them going.
One young woman that comes to our groups, when she first started coming, she hardly ever spoke outside of her family. She'd actually been to college for 2 years and never spoken to anybody during that time. And gradually, through doing activities, particularly drama with us, she started talking to us and trusting us. And she made friends with the other people that came to the groups, and started going for the odd drink or going to somebody's house. And she said she was 31, and she said she'd never ever had a birthday party because she'd never had anybody to invite to her birthday. And she said she wanted a party, but she didn't want it at home. So we suggested that she invited people to meet her in a restaurant and have a meal together. And we helped her write a list of all the people she wanted, and then she helped her write her invitations. And that was 5 years ago, and she's had a party every birthday since.